Should you buy a Volkswagen Tiguan? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. The Tiguan is Volkswagen's best seller, and after getting a full redesign in 2025, Volkswagen has already made a few more updates for 2026. And after spending some time testing it, I'm going to share 5 things that the Tiguan does very well and why you should consider buying one. And then I'll share another 5 reasons why maybe you shouldn't. And because Volkswagen's head office does not respond to my emails or loan me cars, I borrowed this 2026 Tiguan from a Volkswagen dealership. I guess Volkswagen doesn't like how brutally honest my reviews can be, but hey, I say it how it is. But before we get into all the criticisms, let's start things off with a few things that the Tiguan does very well. Starting with the first one, which is its performance. All versions of the Tiguan come standard with a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. With an 8-speed conventional automatic transmission, you get a choice between front-wheel or all-wheel drive in the US, or in Canada, standard all-wheel drive. Now, one thing that's new for 2026 is that this engine comes in 2 different power levels depending on the trim. On most trims, it makes 201 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque, which is quite a bit of power for this class. But on the top of the line model, which is the Highline R-Line Turbo, it makes 268 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. Either way, it's the same engine. Volkswagen just made a bunch of upgrades, including strengthening the engine internals to handle the extra power, and that is quite a bit of power for an SUV like this, and actually makes it just as powerful as the much more expensive Audi Q5, which shares a lot of the same components. But what's really nice with the Tiguan is that you don't need to go for the top of the line model to get great performance. I'm testing the middle trim, the Comfortline, with the R-Line upgrades, and it really has more than enough performance for an SUV like this. The power is excellent, you get plenty of torque for merging and getting up to highway speeds, and it really makes this a nice, satisfying SUV to drive. The 8-speed automatic transmission is also very smooth and seamless. And not only is the performance excellent, but then we have the second thing that the Tiguan does very well, which is its ride and handling balance. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say this is the softest SUV. There is a little bit of firmness to it, but it's still a very comfortable driving SUV, and it has excellent handling. You can drive it aggressively, and it takes corners very well. So if you want a great performing SUV that has a bit of a sporty edge to it, this is probably going to do the trick. But this is not just an impressive SUV because of its performance, its ride, and handling. It's also a very practical SUV, which brings us to the number 3 thing that the Tiguan does very well, and that is interior space. This is a very practical SUV, near the top of its class when it comes to interior volume and interior space. Both the front seats and back seats have plenty of room. Adults will have no issues sitting comfortably, and you get a really spacious cargo area. And of course, the back seats fold flat, giving you even more room, making this an excellent family vehicle. And not only is this a very practical, spacious SUV, but it has a very nice upscale feel to it, which brings us to the number 4 thing that the Tiguan does very well, and that is the premium feeling, feature-packed interior. The interior just has this really nice, almost surprising level of upscale luxury to it. All of the materials are very high quality with excellent fit and finish, and it really doesn't feel that much different from a more expensive luxury SUV. Volkswagen really did an excellent job with the overall look, the fit and finish of this interior, which really helps it live up to its price point. And it's a very well equipped SUV, especially on the higher trims where you get a lot of desirable features, including a large panoramic roof, a very large 13-inch touchscreen infotainment system, and a fully digital driver display that's customizable. Plenty of great safety features, a great sounding sound system, and even on the top trims you get heated, ventilated, and massaging front seats, which is a very rare feature in this class. Driving the Tiguan really makes you realize that we've reached the point where Mainstream regular car brands like Volkswagen and luxury car brands have really started to blur the line, and there really isn't much of a difference or much of a reason to spend the extra money on a luxury brand. Which brings me to the number 5 thing that the Tiguan does very well, and that is giving you a lot of value when compared to more expensive luxury brands. As mentioned, the Tiguan shares most of its components with the much more expensive Audi Q5. Audi is of course part of Volkswagen, and even though the Q5 also received a major update last year, there really isn't a lot that differentiates it from the much less expensive Tiguan, which can be 5 figures lower in price. So even though this can still be an expensive SUV, the pricing ranges roughly between 32 to 46,000 US, or between 39 to 52,000 Canadian, depending on which of the trim levels you go for. It is a good value when you compare it against the more expensive German luxury SUVs, especially considering that it basically comes with all the same features, the same power, performance, interior space, just minus that luxury badge. So there is a lot to like with the Tiguan, no question about that. But having said all those things, there are quite a few problems that I have with the Tiguan that would make me question recommending or buying one. Starting with the first problem, which is its efficiency. Now, this turbocharged engine might make a lot of power, but it's definitely not that fuel efficient. It's rated roughly between 22 to 30 miles per gallon, or 8.5 to 11 liters per 100 kilometers. And I've been finding that you have to drive it very carefully even to hit just those numbers. Now, it does use regular gas, which is a very good thing, but even so, it's not as fuel efficient as other SUVs in this class. And there is no hybrid engine available either, so you have to take what you get. And not only is the Tiguan going to be a more expensive vehicle in terms of fueling costs, but then we have the number 2 problem that I have with this SUV, which is the more expensive operating and servicing costs. Now, the Tiguan might have the really nice premium look and feel of a more expensive German luxury SUV, but unfortunately, Volkswagens also have the more expensive maintenance, repairs, and servicing costs too. In those areas, sadly, they are much closer to a luxury vehicle than a more mainstream, regular brand that they compete with. They are more expensive to repair when out of warranty, and they are more difficult and more challenging to work on and service as well. So in the long run, you are likely going to be spending more money on operating costs when compared to many other regular SUVs. Now, perhaps that wouldn't be a huge deal if Volkswagens had an excellent reputation for being very reliable, but unfortunately that's not really the case. Which brings us to the third problem with the Tiguan, and that is the potential long-term reliability. Volkswagens historically just don't have a great reputation for being that reliable, and they pretty much come rock bottom in most major reliability surveys. They're just known for being more problematic, especially as they age past the warranty when they're more than 6 or 7 years old. Now, having said that, as far as Volkswagens go, the Tiguan is one of the better, more reliable vehicles in the lineup, which is a very good thing. And it actually has the best drivetrain that the company makes. The 2-liter turbo engine, which is the EA888, has been used by Volkswagen for several years now. Historically, this engine has had quite a few reliability concerns, including oil and coolant leaks, oil consumption issues, ignition and injector issues, and also turbocharger failure, which Volkswagen actually faced a major class action for that was recently settled. So historically, not the most reliable engine, but thankfully, because it's been around for so long and is now in its 5th generation, it is fairly well sorted at this point, and if you maintain it well, it can last a long time. But even so, given Volkswagen's reputation for reliability as a whole, combined with their higher than average maintenance and repair costs, I would be skeptical owning one of these past the warranty period for more than 6 or 7 years. And even if you're not concerned about reliability and ownership costs and perhaps only plan to lease one of these, there are other issues with the Tiguan that you need to be aware of. One of the major ones being the user-friendliness of the interior controls. Now, even though this is a very well-equipped SUV as far as features go, it is not a user-friendly one. Everything inside has to be controlled using the center touchscreen. There are no physical controls, and the user interface has a pretty steep learning curve to it. It might look very nice and it's quite responsive, but it is quite frustrating having to fumble around with the touchscreen trying to adjust your controls, especially while driving. And for someone who is a bit more intimidated by having too much technology or just wants to have a more simple interior, this is not going to work well for them. And that brings me to my final issue with the Tiguan, which is the competition that exists. Now, as I said, this is a very nice SUV. It drives very well. It has good performance, a nice high quality interior, and plenty of interior space. But all things considered, it's really not that much nicer or that much better than many other SUVs that you can buy in the same price range. Mazda is a great example of that. The Mazda CX-5 is just as nice to drive, has similar performance if you go for the optional turbo engine. It has a very nice, premium, luxurious feeling interior and a very sporty feel to it. And best of all, you get all those same benefits while being much more reliable and cheaper to run and own in the long run. You can also get most of those same benefits, but with more interior space and more cargo space with some other very similar SUVs, including the Toyota RAV4, the Subaru Forester, or the Honda CR-V. All of these vehicles offer better reputations than Volkswagen when it comes to their reliability, having a lower cost of ownership. They have much better resale value in the long run, and they all offer the option of having a much more fuel-efficient hybrid engine if you want. So, Volkswagen Tiguan, very nice SUV, no question about that. And if you can get an excellent deal on one for a short-term lease, maybe lease it for 3 to 4 years under the warranty period so that you're protected, no issues whatsoever. But as a long-term ownership vehicle, certainly not the best or safest option out there. So let me know your thoughts on the Volkswagen Tiguan. Would you consider buying one, or if you own one, what has your ownership experience been like? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you are planning to purchase a vehicle and you live in Ontario, know that OMVIC is the vehicle sales regulator that's responsible for administering and enforcing the rules that dealerships must follow. To learn more about your consumer protection rights, visit omvic.ca. And if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to visit carhelpcan.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.